Whoa. All right. Welcome, my friends, to the Kyle Seraphin Locals. And now we actually have a Suspendables member part of our YouTube channel. Thanks so much for all of you that are joined over there. It looks like a half dozen or so of you guys have gotten on. YouTube, very new to me. Never really been successful over there. We've never really had an opportunity to do anything successful. So very cool to see you guys joining on, and we appreciate that. The phone number is available to subscribers. If you are watching over on YouTube and you want to make a call into the post or into the show, we welcome it. It's over in the post side. Also something new to me. I didn't realize that there's like this whole second world over on YouTube. So we're playing with that. My folks came into town yesterday, had to drive down to the airport and pick them up. Took a little bit of a jaunt to make that happen. And so I've got my dad sitting in the studio with me today, and I will bring him on momentarily. But we got a first caller, so we might as well just go ahead and welcome number 2 on the air. Who's coming on the air here?
Stevie Wonder.
I knew it. I knew it was you, my friend.
I've got some good news, some great news, and a bombshell.
I'm ready for all of it. Hold on. Let me get the team on the channel here. Let's do this. You ready? Check this out. Kaboom. There we go. We're on the line. And my dad Charlie's with us too.
Yep.
All right.
First thing,
Send it.
VA, 60% disabled.
Did that just come through?
And yep. And that doesn't even include the peripheral neuropathy Agent Orange.
Wow.
So I'm yet to file that. And I'm back paid to 1972.
Are you shitting me?
Nope. It's unbelievable.
That is outstanding. And
So,
that's going to be a chunk of change coming your way.
well, it was 16,000 in back pay. And I don't know if that 16,000 includes, I was first of all 20%, and then they added another 40% for PTSD. So that's that. Second is, I want to challenge your military expertise and comment about Pete Hegseth.
Okay.
Do you know the difference between the enlisted men's oath and the officer's oath?
I know there is a difference, and I know it's based on the line, something to the effect of the officers that are appointed above me, and then the other one is like something about lawful orders, right? You can
Kinda.
Yeah, I understand there's a difference. You're welcome to hit me with it.
Enlisted man's oath. Pledge to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, and follow the orders of my commander-in-chief and his representatives as placed above me.
Yep, tracking that. Okay.
Officer's oath. I pledge to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. I pledge allegiance to the nation and such and such and such.
Okay.
The big difference is officers do not swear to follow orders.
Right.
Because they are expected to disobey unlawful orders.
Okay. That checks out. That makes sense to me.
Everybody, since Pete Hegseth has now declared that the vaccine mandate was an illegal order,
Yep.
every officer that followed that order acted unlawfully.
Right. And that's something that my friends over at Feds for Medical Freedom have been calling out. The interesting thing, like I for me, is that DOD doesn't just have it doesn't just have uniformed personnel, right? They've also got civilian, and he's making that declaration across the entirety of their scope. For me, that was the biggest piece. But I agree with you that says they all acted unlawfully.
To me, it puts every officer that followed the order at risk of court-martial. Okay, and of course, you know that's not going to happen. But
That's right.
It's going to be, you know, along those lines. Oh, never mind. I want to move on to the last one. This one to me is just unbelievable.
Oh, I'm going to throw one thing at you. You know that VA
Yep.
disability is a tax-free. It's not something you claim on your taxes at all.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's being floated out in the chat
Yep.
like it was a novel idea, and anybody who's gotten it for a while knows that. But you can always gross that number
Yep.
up, so it means more than it actually says, even on numbers. So that's good for you on that one.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. All right. The last one is back to COVID. And, this kind of ties together with VA and my treatment and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading about my extreme altitude Malbec from Argentina.
Okay.
Now, it's grown at altitudes in excess of 6,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes extreme altitude grapes. At that and basically in Argentina, they have some of the highest vineyards in the world, some higher than 10,000 feet.
Okay.
And at that altitude, the soil is dry, lacks moisture. You're dealing with low oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
You're also dealing with temperature swings of 77 degrees at night and lack of water. So the grapes, the vineyard, the vines, in order to survive, thicken their skins.
Okay.
Okay, and I find that kind of neat, talking about getting thick-skinned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the thing about that is that in grapes, that's where the tannins come from.
Right.
And the tannins are known to contain polyphenols, which are antiviral, antioxidant.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about resveratrol and quercetin. So what happens is they did a comparison because of this to red grapes in California. They didn't mention the varietal, but they just compared them, and they found out that these extreme altitude Malbec grapes have 10 times as much resveratrol as red grapes in California.
Okay.
Okay. So they are 10 times more powerful in, the fight against COVID, because resveratrol is one of the COVID fighters and one of the spike detoxers.
Right.
And the thing is that, don't let me lose my thought here.
Stay with it here.
Yeah, that's another symptom of long COVID, foggy brain.
Well, that may just be a symptom of life, I think, my friend.
Yeah, that you brought me back to it with that word, life.
Okay.
What it turns out is that because of the thick skins and the resveratrol increase, it triggers the sirtuin pathway response in the grapevine.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the sirtuin pathway?
Nope. You're going to have to tell me.
Now, you as a medic, I would have thought you might have heard something about it. Basically, it is a combination of, I don't know what you call them, but basically in 1979, these are either biological or biochemical reactions, and they basically, when you go into survival mode, you basically create within your body, the plants create within their body the will to live. It enhances their longevity, gives them a grasp on life.
Okay.
The higher resveratrol passes that sirtuin response mechanism onto the human being. The same response is triggered within the human being by fasting.
Oh.
So I'm upping my extreme altitude grape intake.
Okay. Well, that sounds like as good an excuse as any at the end of the day. I'm for it.
Okay, so that's it for me. I don't want to take up all the time, but I just had to get that out there. So
all right, which one did you
my call?
Of those three, which did you consider the bombshell?
The KSS. The officer's oath versus the enlisted oath.
Definitely a big, widespread situation there for sure. So well done. All right, I was more excited about your approval with the VA. I think that's awesome stuff. So I'm happy to hear it.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Bye.
All right, sir. Okay, so Mr. Stevie Wonder's jumping off. That means the phone line is open. Couple things. We'll do some quick housekeeping. There may be a little bit of an echo in our ears because I'm running a different kind of mic on the other side of the room. Folks, if you want to write to the show, and some of you have sent some very interesting thoughts. We got a book from Tracy, which I have got to start scanning, but I haven't had a chance to look at yet. You can send information to the show. You can send us a postcard. I got a Billy the Kid postcard, which was quite cool. The postal address is 9073 West State Highway 29. It's Suite 110, Box 509, Liberty Hill, Texas, 78642. More on that in a second. We got another caller on the line. Caller, you are live with Kyle and Charlie at the same time. How you doing? Why did it not answer? Hello, hello. Do we get you? Can you hear us?
Yes.
There you are. Hello. Who am I talking to?
You hung up on me.
I thought I was answering you. There's multiple. It must have been another call coming at the exact same time. We got popular right away at the same time. All right. Who's on the line with me?
This is Mr. Roke.
Yes, sir. What are you trying to do with, what are you trying to do sending me coveralls? What are we doing here? Are we doing a photo shoot?
No, we're going to make a farmer out of you.
Holy moly. You want to tell people what you sent me?
I sent you Biv overall.
That's right. Okay. My wife laughed at me because I put them on right away. I went like 30. What did you send me? 38 30s?
That's what size they told me.
Yeah, they're not wrong. I mean, it more or less fits. It feels a little awkward because it's not my standard. But I went out there and I went, what in the shit is this? It's 38 30. First of all, they're a little long. The chest is a little bit tight. I'm about a 40 chest or a 41, so it's a little bit snug up top, and it's a little bit long in the leg for some reason. It's just the way they run. But I want to wear overalls really high anyway. So anyway, it was very funny. I got that, and I went like, okay. And the ladies at the PO box place were mystified. I told them that we were trying to avoid getting live animals, and they were appreciative of my statement and that. They were like, what is your deal? Like, who are you? Like, why are people sending you postcards and rando stuff? And I just went, oh yeah, this is going to be interesting. You guys might have a very fun experience with me. So anyhow, the one lady wanted to read my postcard before I could read it. She took it and read it without me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I had troubles at first with FedEx. They're like, they didn't want to go to a PO box.
Yeah, that's the upside to this one. So this is a physical location. So they do UPS and DHL and all the other stuff out of there. So they can receive everything, as we found out. Well, thank you for the interesting and unusual gift.
Well, I sent Steve Friend a case of almonds.
Were they Blue Diamond almond?
They were.
Yeah, I did see a picture of that. That's fantastic stuff. So here's the thing. I'll share a funny story about those. He got them and he goes, Kyle Seraphin Show listeners are the best. And I said, yeah, obviously. And so he sends me a picture of the almonds. I go, Steve, I used to work at a radio station, and one of my co-sales people at CBS radio. So my dad's sitting over here in the corner off to my right, and he used to be the news. What were you, Dad? The news director?
News and programming, yeah.
Yeah, news and programming. Okay, so he ran, what was on the air, and many years later, I got to show up there, and I did my second job out of college selling airtime. And one of the guys had Blue Diamond almonds, Blue Diamond nuts as his client, right? And he would walk around with free samples, and he would wait till we were on the phone and cold calling people, and then he would throw them at us and holler, "Sack of nuts!" He would just yell it out at, and you'd be on the phone trying to a prospective client, trying to sell them marketing or advertising. Sales guys are weirdos to begin with. So he would just go, "Sack of nuts," and toss them on you. So I can't not see those sack of nuts and think that every time I see them. Can't remember that guy's name, but he was funny. He was a good dude. That was a thoughtful gift. I think Steve will eat for a year on that.
Well, I would think at least if he only eats one a day.
That's yeah.
I figured this way he can have a handful.
Because he doesn't have to ration as tightly.
Right, he doesn't have to ration, exactly.
I don't know Steve's deal about eating, and I'm not making it up when I say that he eats an almond a day. When we were hanging out on the set with Dinesh D'Souza doing the Police State movie, he went for several days without eating. I don't know why. There was no particular reason. We just got up in the morning and he went for his run and I went and got coffee and I had breakfast, like pancakes and stuff. And then he showed up and he was showered and ready to go. And I go, you want to eat something? And he goes, no. I go, okay, whatever. So we just got in the truck and we drove over to the thing and we set up for the movie and we're doing our thing. And then, you know, the cast would break for lunch. I go, Steve, you hungry? You want anything? He goes, oh, they don't have anything here I eat. I go, okay, whatever. And then the day would end, and I go, hey man, you want to stop and get something to eat? And he's like, I'll sit with you, but like I don't need anything. I go, okay, fine, dude. So I would go and get like a burger or something like that, and I go, do you want me to take you somewhere else? Like, what will you eat? And he's like, nah, it's too late for me to eat anyway at this point. And he did that for days. He just refused to eat. So I don't, you know, he's a special guy. He eats one almond a day, and he has no hands.
No hands. Well, we did see him, but I don't know if they were his hands for sure because we couldn't see the elbows.
Yeah, unconfirmed reports, right?
Right, yeah, exactly.
So we'll do a little holler out to Crypto Rick, who's over on our YouTube channel, and he sent me a super chat today that I didn't see, but I'm seeing it now. And it says, someone once saw Steve Friend's elbows. Unfortunately, it was the last thing that they ever saw. Sounds about right.
Yeah. It does.
What else is going on in your world? Anything exciting? You building anything that I should know about? Any top secret programs you're welding together?
Well, we are very busy now again, which is good. We don't really have anything cool yet on the docket. I mean, possibly I've quoted some really cool stuff and we'll probably get, but nothing right now. We did some cool stuff over the winter. Like we built a mobile polar plunge trailer. So up here, Special Olympics.
Okay.
They do polar plunge challenges where you know, usually you would jump in a lake that's iced over, you know, like cut a hole in and jump in it. Well, they wanted a mobile version to bring to high schools and colleges and whatnot. So we built them one. That was kind of cool.
What does that look like?
So it's 40 feet long, and one side, there's a set of steps that go up, and there's a platform. You jump off into a pool that we made.
Mm-hmm.
It's 14 feet long, and then there's a set of steps that go up out of it that is full width of the trailer, and then there's a set of steps to go back down to the ground. It's red, bright red. Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's super light, actually. It only weighed 6,800 pounds.
That's dry weight, though.
Yeah, right. They fill it up when they get there, but still, it's all aluminum. The entire thing is all aluminum.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was cool.
Yeah, sounds terrible too. I don't know why I knew I don't know what would make someone want to do that, but
yeah, I don't know. That's not my thing. My brother actually, one year he went up to Duluth in the middle of winter. He went to this retreat where you sit in a sauna,
yeah, and
then you'd run out and you would jump into the lake. And ever since then, he gets this rash. He got this amoeba infection. And like the first time he got it, you know, he got really, really sick, went to the hospital for a few days. And then like every couple months it comes back. And finally now they figured out what medication to give him.
Oh, dude.
Keep it at bay. So I'm like, that's not my thing. Not jumping in cold water.
That is not good. Yeah. You hear my dad laughing back there. My dad's laughing because that sounds like some bonehead stuff that one of his buddies might have done back in the day coming out of Wisconsin.
Crazy.
Yeah. So what I am wondering, if you're immortal legendary, does that make your dad the immortal of immortals of legendaries of legendaries?
I don't know. He has to answer the question himself.
I don't know, but I remember once in northern Wisconsin, we decided it was May. Okay, it was May. We decided we were going to be the first ones to go swimming, so we took a bunch of big tree branches and we broke a hole in the ice closest to shore because it wasn't very thick at that point, and we all jumped in. That's what I have a flashback when anybody talks about that polar stuff. I think, yeah, I did it once, and I'm just thankful that I didn't get a rash. Oh man,
it's just like swimming in Lake Superior. I've only swam in Lake Superior once because it's pretty much always cold.
Yeah,
it's so deep.
Yeah,
that I only swam in it once. It was 100 degrees out in Duluth. It was like you'd run into the water, you'd be cold, you'd run back out. Run back out.
Yeah. I did a couple times, but I wouldn't call it swimming because I made it up to about my knees, and I waded in, and then I waded back out again, and went, no, they're not doing that. It's always cold.
I have a very different experience in water, although I've been in some pretty cold water. I would always just do weird stuff. I remember I almost died going into hot water. You know where Galveston, Texas is? It's due south of Houston. Interestingly enough, my wife and I had what will only be referred to as a half-assed honeymoon because we were both really cheap and I was even more cheap. So we borrowed one of my friend's condos for like 3 days, and it was 105 degrees and the humidity was in the 80% range. It was real awful. But I remember years prior, I was hanging out there on a beach house with one of my buddies who was he's a plastic surgeon now, and he was going to school at, I think, University of Texas Medical Branch. And he invited me down to this beach house. It's down right on the water. It's some other doctor that he was working with thing, some like, I don't know, the chief of plastic surgery or something while he's a resident. So we have this beach house, and I decided to go swimming, and I was like, it's no big deal. But the water was about 90 degrees and brown. It looked brown like diarrhea kind of thing because it's, it's just Mexico crap just comes up there. And so I had a couple of mosquito bites like you might get when it's 1,000 degrees outside and it's super muggy and gross. I know you guys get those up in Minnesota too, but Texas mosquitoes got a hold of my knees, put some holes in there. I went out and swam. And about 3 days after July 4th on the 4th of July thing, I get back home. I got a fever about 104 degrees. I thought I was going to die. I'm falling apart. And I look and like there's a red fingers crawling out of the hole that's like from the little mosquito on my leg, and it's going all the way up my legs. It's reaching up to my hip and it's moving onto my belly and stuff like that. And so I ended up going in with a cellulitis infection that almost killed me. But it was a one and done. It was a one and done. I was on antibiotics for like 3 nights in the hospital, or 2 nights, and they pumped it in, and I walked away, and I never felt it again. So I can be injured. I just don't think I can be killed based on all the available evidence so far.
Right. You just re-heal.
Right. I actually have one of the dumbest stories that of my entire life, which I probably shouldn't share, but I'll do it anyway because why not? What do they tell you to do if you ever catch on fire? You do some industrial safety. I imagine that's a possibility in your shop, right? What do they tell you to do?
Drop down to the ground and roll.
Right. Stop, drop, and roll, right? They teach that to little kids. The problem is if you ever do catch on fire, it's not the first thing that you think of, particularly if you've been drinking. And so I'm not much of a drinker, but I had a night where I had a kind of like, there's probably like a half dozen nights in my life where I stepped over my line pretty far and went like, I wish I hadn't done that. And luckily, one of those nights, I decided to catch myself on fire. So I watched these guys, and they were all college kids, and they're all taking Everclear, right? Like the really, really high proof alcohol. Yep. They're blowing it through a lighter, and they're being really kind of judicious about it. So they're going like little puffs, there's little puffs of fire, and everyone's kind of cheering for it. And I went, what a bunch of pussies, these guys, and I had swimmer's lungs, and, I thought I was pretty tough, and I was also inebriated. So I grab a big swig of the bottle, and then I go and I grab the lighter. And do you remember the Street Fighter game?
Yep.
Yeah. So I basically did like the yoga flame. So basically a flame that was about 6 feet by about 8 feet high, just blew an enormous flame. I was really proud of it. And I started blowing it towards all the people that were 10 feet away from me. And they were all like, whoa, so they all kind of like get out of the way from this huge fireball that I'm blowing, which I was really proud of. But I watched them all kind of running from it, which made me laugh. And then I dribbled all the alcohol down my face, and then I lit my face on fire, and then I blew it onto my hands, caught my arms on fire, and then I just looked at myself burning there and went, holy shit, now what? Because I was mesmerized by being on fire. And luckily, one of my friends, who is essentially like permanently, and he's a special guy, but he's kind of like always in middle school, probably, like as far as age and maturity, he dropped me to the ground and started screaming, "Stop, drop, and roll, bitch!" And he rolled me around in the grass until I went out. And I had what had to have been 3rd-degree burns. They were welted. I've seen real solid burns. They were welted. They were blistered all up and down both arms. And I went to bed that night, and when I woke up, my arms were completely clear. All the hair was burned off it, but like there was no more welts, and I barely could go to sleep. Like it hurt so much. I was like, oh, this is a really bad idea. Went to bed, woke up in the morning, totally fine. Absolutely fine.
Nothing worse smelling than burnt hair.
I feel like it reminds me of a job well done. It reminds me that whatever it is, I got real close. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I'll light a fire and it's like, oh, I got it. Good. Like that worked.
I mean, I guess I'm used to it. Every time we weld or I weld, that's what it smells like. You start burning your hair.
For sure.
On your arms.
Yeah, we had a really neat little thing that was set up in Austin for a small period of time. It was called the Tech Shop. Did you ever have one of those up in Minnesota?
No.
It was like one of the neatest ideas. It was basically trying to teach people or give people access that were craftspeople but didn't have the space for a full shop. So you could buy into the tech shop, and it was a monthly cost, whatever it was. It was like $80 a month. They gave me a scholarship to it as a veteran. They gave out a bunch of scholarships to anybody who was a vet, and you could go in there and you could take classes on woodworking or hot shop metal or cold shop. They had circuitry, they had 3D printing, they had milling, like all this really cool stuff, and they would teach you how to do it. And they had millions of dollars worth of equipment there. Every saw you could think of. For wood or for metal, they had TIG and they had MIG, and they had people that were experts in it that were retired crafts guys and retired, whatever it is, artisan type creator dudes that would do that. And so they would come in and just teach I'm sure they got paid. And we would just go in there and you could just go learn anything. So like I went into they had a 3D CAD machine that would do milling for wood. You could plug it in there so you could bring in your stuff. Anyway, it was really neat. It was a really cool space. And I learned how to do some like really basic welds, and I was absolutely dog shit at it. So my best thing I ever did was like put together, and I probably used the worst material because I didn't have any money either. So I was like doing like a bunch of little spot welds and putting together some target stands with some rebar, which is a really good way to burn right through rebar if you're not sophisticated, which that's me. But a lot of burnt hair in there too.
Depending on the rebar, because there's like if we weld on rebar, it has to be weldable rebar. They make rebar that's not.
Sure.
Just it cracks off. You remember? I think this was probably in the early 2000s when there was that oil spill in the Gulf of America.
I love it. The Gulf of America. We're just committed to that now.
So
I feel like every time we say it, it's just like it's like a F you to somebody. Somebody is really offended by it. Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, we built the machine that went down and capped it off.
Okay.
So we got a contract from. They use a water jet to cap them off. They blast them shut with high pressure.
Okay.
Water/air.
Yeah.
And we built this rig to go down there and do. It was all stainless. I had to get certified to be able to weld on it, to do all the procedures, and then it had to go through X-ray and all sorts of stuff. But it was a pretty cool project.
Yeah. And did you have to go underwater and do it?
No, we built the rig here in Minnesota, and then they shipped it down to the Gulf and used it.
Yeah, I talked to some industrial welders, and I don't envy anybody who thinks that's a good idea. I mean, I know there's good money in it, and I know it's probably pretty interesting and terrifying at the same time, but some of the stories I've heard from guys are so crazy. Like guys turning around and seeing a fish like the size of their fucking body, like, just like a mouth that just opens up, and they're like, oh shit. Some huge channel catfish.
The only ones that really make really good money in the welding field are the underwater welders.
Yeah, and they only live until they're about like 50, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It seems like a rough gig.
We actually have a project right now for the state of Texas. We sell them trailers. It's weird, but we sell them basically mobile weight stations.
Okay.
So it's it's a roller deck trailer, and it has 2 scales on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the trailer tilts. It's a roller bed. They slide them off, and they go set them up on, like, off on, you know, county roads or whatever to catch the people that are going around the scales.
Okay.
So we built quite a few for them now. We've only been doing business with them probably 3 or 4 years, and we probably sent a good 10 or 12 down there already.
Is that Texas Department of Public Safety that you deal with, or is it somebody else?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's for them. Yep.
That's a interesting move. But it makes sense that people try to skip out on the weight stations, I'm sure, especially more and more now. What about these autonomous trucks? You see about that? Self-drivers?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm on is I'm on a committee, NATM. I'm on a couple of different, they have subcommittees, whatever. I'm on a few. We talk about autonomous vehicles a lot and how that adapts to trailers, and then, you know, smart trailers and, you know, trailers that will help charge the vehicle, because there's no, as far as like a regular consumer vehicles, there's none of them that are right now are really made to pull a trailer. If you go to pull a trailer, it doesn't matter how it's shaped, 50% cut right away, mileage, instant. That's what you're going to lose. It doesn't. So U-Haul's done a lot of testing, and they're part of our, and they tested all different aerodynamics, tried making the trailer more aerodynamic, used super boxy trailers. It didn't matter what the trailer looked like.
They just can't make it work.
50% in half.
It's just the weight.
It's just the weight that's the biggest factor.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then you get up in the northern climates, you get the same thing in the winter. It cuts it in half because the
battery can't hold it. Yeah, they can't hold the same shit.
They hate the cold.
That's so
and
funny.
The ones that are able to use in the cold, a lot of them have heaters on them that they keep the batteries warm.
Yeah, so they're burning everything on all ends.
Yeah. I actually had a contract a couple of years ago for a guy out of Seattle. He wanted me to help him build a smart trailer that would help charge the tow vehicle. And we got pretty far. Yeah. But it's just a money pit hole unless you have huge financial backing in it. And then you're not going to sell it to, you know, Winnebago or any of the camper people, because no one's going to pay the price that it's going to take for all that technology, because it's not there yet.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And then also, like, they're going to have to plan their trips at a different level. I think part of the lure of being in an RV, I mean, maybe my dad could tell me otherwise, but you could just hit the road and see where you end up, I imagine. You don't have to plan for like a recharging station. You want to be able to go and just grab a fuel depot and roll.
That's right. I mean, I grew up camping, you know. My parents always said we were travelers. We weren't campers.
Were they sovereign citizens or what?
We didn't rough it. So people are like, you don't camp. My dad would always say, no, we're travelers. we bring everything with us in style. We don't.
Yeah, that's a real fancy word for gypsy, but that's okay. Not everybody goes that route. Yeah. I'm not mad at it. Yeah, you know what? At some point in time, I remember. So I had a moment when I was doing the survival school for the Air Force, and I was out in the woods, and it's below freezing, but it's above zero, and it was shitty cold. It was cold enough, and everybody was supposed to sleep under a poncho hooch, right? So you're supposed to run like a string line between a couple of trees, and then go drape your poncho over it, and then stake it down, and then climb into like a little triangle bullshit, tent where you're just on the ground, and it just looked like a bummer. And so everybody stakes out their poncho hooches, whatever. And I went, I got plenty of life to live miserably in, Afghanistan or wherever the hell they're going to send me next. I don't feel like I need to do it out here in Spokane, Washington. That doesn't seem like it's going to add any value, like being cold and shitty tomorrow. So I looked around and I saw that they had, for the instructors, they had this big sort of like lean-to thing set up. and it was a semi-permanent structure with tarps and all this kind of stuff, and all their wood was in there for the fires that they would build. And so they had, a whole winter's worth of wood, and it was all these pine boughs on the ground in there. So it was real springy and soft. And of course it was like a really sturdy, airtight thing. So I just crawled in there with my sleeping bag. I slept like a king and everybody else froze their ass off. I woke up in the morning and I went like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's the rule. That's my thought.
Yeah. Now in Minnesota, you can't transport wood. You have to buy it where you're at. You cannot transport wood.
Yeah. How long are you guys going to last there? One of my buddy's business just left. My buddy's business just left Minnesota, and he moved to Montana. He said, "I'm out. I'm done with this place." They made everything he owned a felony, and everything he wanted to do felonious. So.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the trend.
Yeah, you guys are going to end up with nothing but just a bunch of cold Somalis living there.
We got a lot of those, and I have lots of stories about those.
Next time, I want
stories about those.
I want 3 Somali stories. Your top 3 next time. That's what prioritize and work through.
I'll have to get permission from my wife, maybe.
That's fair.
Or if I care.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're all stories. She came home and told me because she's a teacher, and
oh boy,
at one time she had a large number of Somalians.
Yeah. I'm really glad that we're bringing them all in, and I'm glad we're bringing them to somewhere where they fit in so nicely, like Minnesota. That's when I think about people from Somali. I think where would they go and just really kind of blend in? Florida, no. Arizona, no. What about Minnesota? That's what I'm thinking. I think maybe that's where they ought to go.
That's Catholic and Lutheran Charities.
Yeah,
that's who does it in Minnesota.
What an absolute shit show we've done.
Funny
to our country.
enough.
Yeah, no, it's just bad.
So, my son, his best friend, dad, works for Catholic Charities, and I got into it with him on that about that.
Oh, I bet.
They bring them here, and then they don't take care of them.
Yeah, no, they're all.
That's the taxpayer take care of them.
That's right.
And then they'll go and live 20 to a studio apartment. So then they call it a condo, so they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
they have some very interesting habits.
That's a very sensitive way of saying that.
We'll just say it nice. Yes.
Yeah, that was very nice. Everybody appreciates your sensitive. There's a lot of Somalis that listen to this show, so I appreciate you being gentle with them.
Right. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Well, I appreciate the overalls. I don't know when I'm going to wear them, but if I do, I may or may not send you a individual picture. I don't know if it's for public consumption, but my wife told me. So here's the thing. My wife, she's like, it's kind of a bad habit if people send you clothing and then you send your pictures. Like, what the hell's wrong with you if that's your life? And I go, no, you're exactly right. I don't need to encourage this sort of behavior. I don't want people sending me shit and then sending them pictures of me in it. But maybe some exceptions of things that don't seem too particularly scandalous. I was thinking like there's a pretty good power, and I need to stain them up right away. So whenever I do truck work, maybe I'll throw on the coverall and call it a day. Is that agreeable?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
I just added a ranch hand bumper to the front of the truck that I picked up. So my 250 now has a push bar. It looks like a Texas truck. Somebody was like, "Oh, what's that for?" And I was like, "That's just to drive a truck so you tell people around you that you're not gay." In Texas, if you drive a truck without a push bar, it's possible that you're inviting other men's attention. So if you put the push bar on, they just assume you're heterosexual. That's all. There's no real special power to it.
When I was in high school, I had a little Nissan truck that was handed down to me.
Yep.
And I buried it one time, buried it up to the axle. So my friend pulled me out, and in the process, we kinked the bumper in half. So I'm like, hell with that cheap thing. So I built my own.
Right.
And I was on my way to school one day, and I was stopped for a bus.
Okay.
And one of my friends, he came flying around this Jeep, and then he didn't see the bus was parked, and he slammed into me. Not one scratch on my bumper. It totaled his car, and it totaled the Jeep that rear-ended him.
I like it. This is, yes, that's righteous. And that's how you knew where you needed to go with your professional life. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew what I was going to do because, like, so the company I work for, my uncle actually started in 1968. So I went there during the summer in high school, and I would live with him, even though he wasn't still really totally part of the company anymore. He pretty much, at that point, handed it off to his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But I still lived with him and started working there, and then, worked my way up. And living with him, I learned a lot of things. We built race cars and all sorts of stuff. We'd be able to work on more welding skills and all sorts of stuff. So it was a lot of fun, very interesting.
I believe it.
So then I decided to go to engineering school, got through that. Then I went to business school, and then still at where I'm at.
Sending me overalls and making cool custom stuff for the state of Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate that. I appreciate there's people out there with hard skills that are actually doing things, as opposed to today. Somebody encouraged me to get a job, which I thought was kind of funny. I was like, "Shit, I thought I had one. What the hell do I do every day?"
Funny enough, when we'll get high school students that will come in and want to do a shadow program or whatever, come in and shadow, and I'll tell them before they leave. Now, whatever you do not become a welder.
Right.
Become an electrician.
Okay.
Or a plumber.
Yeah. That checks out. What, yeah, I was going to ask you, do you guys ever hook up with things like Micro Works or any of those kind of foundations? Do you guys get any of that kind of, that action?
No.
I feel like we should hook you up.
I mean, I've been DOT certified. Actually, our guys now are all DOT certified.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do federal inspections. We can do state inspections as far as vehicles go, trailers go. And then my welders are also, some of them I've DOT certified as far as state of Minnesota goes. And then normal welding code D.1, they're all certified too.
Yeah.
But
better off to be an electrician though, apparently.
You're better off being, you want to make money and not have to work as hard, be an electrician.
See, that's a good cheat code to teach people.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Everybody can use that information.
But that's, my kids all have them out, chopping wood or whatever. And they're like, why do we have to work so hard? I'm like, in the future, you will be thanking me when you're able to do something, you're not breaking a sweat, and the person next to you is, dragging ass, and you're like, this is nothing. You're going to be thanking me. So keep on digging that hole.
That's right. No, I'm sitting next to the man right now who put me through, had me go and do work. And I always felt like I didn't have any other options. So I did. And I'm glad I did. And some of my brothers didn't, and they don't know how to do anything. I rarely find a problem. The best story, this actually happened to me the other day. This is one of those moments. I don't think I told my dad this yet. So my buddy who I've known since we've known each other since 7th grade, and we went to high school together. We were college roommates. We've known each other forever and spent a ton of time together. And I hit him up the other day. I was going to ask him to do something for me. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm working on my truck. I go, oh, okay. What do you got going on? And he's like, I cannot get the tailgate to drop. There must be like a little, they got those little plastic catches, and it has the two releases, and I guess one of them broke or something. He's like, I can't get it to open. I go, oh, okay. I said, well, I was going to see if you wanted to drive this desk down to this dude. He was going to pay me, and I'll just give you the delivery money, so I'll pay your gas too, so you'll just make profit. You want to go make $200 today? I'll just have you drive this thing down. He goes, well, I got to have the tailgate down because I got to help this lady move next week. And I said, you know what, dude, just bring it over here. We'll fix it, and then if this guy wants you to take the desk, you do it. So he goes, great. So he drives over to me, and I set up my, I'm smart now. I didn't used to be, but I'm smarter now. So I set up a tent. I got one of those like 4-post, like farmer's market tents to give me shade because it's hot in Texas. So I pop that sucker up, and he backs into the driveway, and he comes over, and he gets out of the truck, and I go, okay, and I look, and he'd already taken off the back, and he'd taken off the plastic liner for the tailgate and all that stuff, right? And so it's just the skeleton of the tailgate, which is not very much, and it's an old Tundra, like a 2001 or a 2003 Tundra, something like that. And I look in there, and it's like every other tailgate I've ever seen. It's like every other lift handle, and it articulates and pulls inward, and then the two little steel rods activate the release and they drop, right? So I just reach in there and I grab both the rods and I pull them inward, and the fucking tailgate drops down in about 1.5 seconds, and he falls backwards on the ground, and he's on his back, and he starts laughing so hard he's crying. And I go, "Are you all right, dude?" And he goes, "Dude, I've been working on that thing for 2 hours." I said, "You poor I said, "What was so troubling?" He's like, "I don't even know what you did." I go, "Well, I guess we'll go have a smoothie now, man. We'll go take a break." It was pretty good work. So I put a little bracket on there. We fixed it up with some zip ties and epoxied it so it stayed. It's not going to ever need to come off again. But yeah, my brothers couldn't do it. My buddy, he's capable, but sometimes you just need to have somebody who's done more stuff like that and problem solving. Your kids will appreciate you one day. They won't appreciate you today, though. I guess that's probably the most likely thing.
I know. But I mean, my dad did the same thing to me when I was a kid.
Yeah, so it works.
I was always at his side, and growing up, we fixed everything.
Yeah.
If anything was wrong in the house, we fixed it. The vehicles, everything. We worked on everything. So I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And try to pass it on to my kids as much as I can.
That's right. Even if they get 80% of it, they'll still be better off. I just was lucky enough to not have any money for a big chunk of my life, and so I couldn't afford to pay anybody to fix stuff, and I couldn't afford to pay mechanics or anything. So it was just a skill of necessity. I was like, I better figure this out, because I'm not about to pay someone $400 to put an alternator in when the alternator costs $90. I'll just figure it out. It's like it starts with small stuff, and then you start figuring out how to do more important or more difficult.
Right. I always had the motto, if someone else can do it, why can't I?
Clearly. Yeah. Well, I've met a lot of other people like you, and there's a lot of dummies out there. So if they're getting it done, it must be doable.
Right.
That's my experience too. Well, I appreciate the call. Thanks for the story, and thanks for the overall. You got something else you want to add too?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Here it comes.
Let's say you were 18. You had a time machine, and you could go back in time to any time. When would you go back to?
Man, when would I go back to if I could go back to any time? Can I bring a machine gun? Because that changes where I'm going.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I might go become like a Roman emperor if I can come back. I think even just a pallet of ammunition and a bolt action, I think I can take over some countries. I don't know. Right. I always liked the book Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Courtyard. I always found that to be a fascinating read as a thought experiment. So something like that was appealing, but also every time in the past, all seemed like it was really shitty because there was no medicine, and you were basically, if anything happened, you died. So I don't know if I like the idea of going back anytime outside of the modern era, and I don't know how far back I would go. Maybe I'd go back to the pre-internet time. I might go back 20 years before I was born or something and see what that was about, but it's been, I think the march onward with technology and the way life is, it's hard to, I stood out in my cul-de-sac yesterday, and I just looked around and I went, this is pretty good, even for all of our bitching about what goes on in our government and the way that our country is run and all the other kind of non-tangibles. It's a pretty good time to be alive. It's hard to argue with it, I would say. Maybe that's just my take.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I guess I'm more grateful for where I am and what I see around me than not. I'll think on it. I may get you another answer tomorrow or the next day. But
how about Charlie?
Dad, what do you say? You want to go anywhere?
I'll go back to 1967, 68, somewhere in there.
Back when you were actually 18?
Yeah.
He would just do it again.
Yeah. If you have the information that you have now and you can go back in time, you don't even need the weapon. You just need the knowledge, and could have done a lot of things better. But I can share some information with you guys because I did a search.
Send it.
I wanted to find out something because we were talking about how, turning an aircraft carrier. So I just I did a search. How long does it take to turn an aircraft carrier 180 degrees?
10 minutes.
3 to 5. 3 to 5.
6 months.
No, 3 to 5. 3 to 5 minutes.
6 to 8 months, I think, is the rule.
No, 3 to 5 minutes.
I thought that
you can do it in 3 minutes, and they have in combat situations when you really have to crank it. You can crank it and turn 180 degrees in 3 minutes. And if the weather is bad and the wind conditions and everything else, and it can be as much as 5, but it's 3 to 5 minutes. And how many times have we heard that? Well, how long does it take? It takes a long time to turn an aircraft carrier. No, it's 3 to 5 minutes.
We can answer it. We can say 3 to 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so get the fuck to work.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up with these people trying to snow us with this nonsense, huh?
Yeah.
Right. I figured I would go back to like the 1940s.
Okay.
So I could maybe try to strain out the boomers.
Yeah. That would be the goal as they were being born.
Yeah, that'd be the goal. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if you listened to, I did an interview with, I think it was Ron Coleman. I'm trying to replace the actual comment that made, but I think it was Ron Coleman, and it was a pretty interesting interview. He's a slow, deliberate talker, a very interesting guy, and he attributes all of the problems that we have not to the boomers, but to the greatest generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you could blame a lot on Rosie the Riveter.
Right, certainly. His statement was essentially that the fact that people went off to war, did something heroic, and then came back and put their heads down and stopped paying attention is truly was the real sin. And it wasn't the fact that boomers showed up and were the gimme generation, all the other things about people assigned to boomers. And that was his take. And I always like it when someone has something that is reasoned and follows a path of logic, and it is different from everything else I hear. I like it when I hear that kind of stuff. And anyway, so Ron Coleman, interesting guy to go listen to his principles on that. But if you wanted to straighten out some some infant boomers, I think nobody would be mad at you.
Right. We need to get them not to type in caps. We got to fix that.
We got to. If we could get Nancy Pelosi to just stop increasing the size of her bosom at this point, it's just not. We just don't need that. If you're over the age of 70, I think it should be a federal crime to get.
That's a safety device.
Yeah.
Yeah. People fall. You get older, you fall.
It didn't stop her. She broke her hip on those freaking stairs.
I know, but she fell the wrong way. You got to learn to fall forward.
Or you need ass implants. You need those things too.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Chris, you've been appropriately mentally destroyed with this garbage. That's our worst thoughts of the night.
No, I don't.
That's the downside of Friday.
I don't think you could mentally destroy me anymore.
Yeah, that's probably true.
You don't know what went on in my childhood.
I can. Yeah. Oh, that's fair.
I had a great childhood.
Yeah, full of experiences.
We did a lot of stupid stuff.
Exactly.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
But I'll let you go so you can maybe take somebody else on.
We'll see who else is here. See what else they got. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for the overalls. Maybe or maybe not on the picture. I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
All right, bud. Thank you.
Good night.
Night. Bye. All right, folks. The lesson is don't punch a hole in the ice and get an amoeba infection for the rest of your life. Did you know you were lucky like that, Dad?
No, I think it was probably the sauna because he was going back and forth between the sauna. So it was probably the heat. That's where he picked up the bad stuff. The cold probably doesn't hurt that much. It's just like your story. As soon as you talk about that 90-degree water that looks brown, going into it, not a good decision.
Yeah, no, the Gulf of America is not nice water. It is just not beautiful, but we need it anyway.
I have one real quick thought to share if I can before you take that next call.
Yep.
Okay, so this is my first time back on YouTube since I got canceled.
That's funny.
No, it is. I mean, I was thinking about it. I have not been on YouTube until tonight, and it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't even remember when it was, but I was doing that local radio show in Arizona, and I said, I think that making kids wear masks is really stupid.
Yeah.
And they sent the thing back. They took the program down, and they labeled it medical misinformation. Never forget it.
That's it.
And canceled me on YouTube. So.
Canceled for your bad opinion about masks.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is great.
Who do we have on the line here? I picked up a call and just let them listen to us ramble for a second. Who's on the line?
Hi, Kyle. This is Trucker Joe here.
Hey, Trucker Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm glad to hear Charlie on the line, and want to let Charlie know that I'm following that. I just followed him on Amazon.
Oh,
Okay.
because of his book there?
Yeah, I'm going to buy all 3 of your books, Charlie.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Hope you like them. If you don't, I'll give you a money back guarantee. You write to me or call Kyle and tell him that you don't like my books, and we'll reimburse you.
How about that?
I'm pretty good at finding value in anything I read, so I'm sure I'll enjoy them.
Yeah,
Excellent.
There's definitely some value. You know what's also good is that I remember reading some on an airplane, and then I think I had a couple extra copies, so I handed one off to a lady who was looking over. You ever see someone read over your shoulder on the airplane? You're like, hey, if you want the book that bad, I'll just give it to you. I gotta hook up with the writer. And we can make that happen.
Cool.
That's cool.
Thank you.
So what's going on with you tonight?
Well, I don't know how much time I got, but I got a mini rant I can give you.
Give it to me. That's a good tee up. I'll take it.
Okay. So I'm going through this divorce with 4 little children,
Mm-hmm.
and where both spouses are, myself and my wife, we are both practicing Catholics. At least we both claim to be. Well, the Catholic Church has in its canon law that the local ordinary is to intervene in marriages in crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and that permanent separation must have a permission obtained from the local ordinary. And then in the Third Council of Baltimore, the same council that produced the Baltimore Catechism,
Mm-hmm.
it says that they declared that the local ordinary must give permission in order to obtain civil divorce. And then it's also in canon law that the marriage tribunals that deal with annulments are supposed to do everything they can to save the marriage before they begin the annulment process.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is the Catholic Church is doing none of this.
That sounds right.
So the Catholic Church is only facilitating the destruction of marriages by requiring a civil divorce without any kind of requirement for intervention beforehand. And then that's in order to pursue an annulment. And then they just approve annulments without trying to intervene to save the marriage, even after the civil divorce happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Arthur Devine, way back in the late 1800s, he wrote a book on canon law on marriage. And he talks about how civil divorce could be permissible in certain instances, like with inheritance issues, but the church would still require both spouses to live as husband and wife because they still are married in the church and still continue conjugal relations and all that.
Interesting.
So civil divorce, but if the Catholic Church allows it in certain exceptions, they still had to get permission from the local ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call out all the bishops of the Catholic Church and tell them, you're not doing your job. Canon law requires them to help save Catholic marriages, and they are doing absolutely nothing.
Where do you live?
So I live in the Archdiocese of St. Louis.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I am going to be starting a YouTube channel sometime to talk about the issue. And it's maddening. It's absolutely maddening that the Catholic Church is failing epically in saving Catholic marriages.
I think it's even deeper than that, though. I mean, I don't think you're wrong, but it seems like the Catholic Church is not even holding to any of its own principles. It's gotten to this point where, from parish to parish, depending on where you go, it's kind of like, we don't want to offend anybody, so we're not going to say anything that's hard. And I've been to so many squishy parishes with squishy, preachers out there on the priest is up at the pulpit saying things that doesn't offend anybody. It's vanilla as it can get. And oftentimes it's not even in agreement with the teachings of the church. And you just go, what in the hell are we doing here? I mean, I walked out the other day. We had our I call him Father Padre Portupueste, because he says, of course, about 5 times every minute. It's a shocking amount of things that he'll say. He'll just be talking randomly. And I don't think he prepares for his homily the way that he's supposed to. I don't think he does the meditation required based on the way that he just sort of rambles. And he said, our pilgrimage to Germany, which I don't know why they're doing a pilgrimage to Germany, but that's what they did. It's essentially just a sponsored trip that he's getting to go on. And he said, my pilgrimage to Germany is going to cost more money than the last trip because of the tariffs. You guys understand why that is. And the guy who's made all these problems for us. So he's bitching about, politics and at the same time, they're asking for money for people who are illegal aliens, and they have people sitting out there in the parking lot who have, pro-choice Catholic Democrat, Texas Democrat in a Catholic church. And I don't understand how any of that can be the case.
You need to pray for Cardinal Burke. He's the last great hope of conservatism, I think, in the Catholic Church. And he was demoted about 3 or 4 times during the recent papacy. And I hope that he will have some significant influence in the conclave, because he's the real deal, and he really, I think, understands all the things that you're suffering with right now, Joe. So hopefully we can turn this aircraft carrier around.
3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. It's just not heading in the right direction.
Yeah, thankfully I've had a few priests offer to intervene, and my wife actually finally agreed to talk to one.
Mm-hmm.
And she came out of the meeting stating, situation is beyond his scope, whatever that means.
She's just not interested in pursuing this, it sounds like, yeah. She's not doing her end of it.
Go ahead.
No, it was a question. It just sounds like, because we've spoken about this at length previously. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's troubling. I've actually got my marriage expert in the room with me, so when it comes to that,
well, and the other problem is, the priest says it's beyond his scope, kind of thing. That's one of the problems that we have in the church. I've been fortunate to live long enough to have known a lot of priests, and there are some who go into seminary basically out of 8th grade and have never had any real life experience. So when it comes to counseling people, particularly in marital strife, they just don't have the tools, because they don't understand how the real world works. And then we've had other priests that have been at parishes where we've been, and friends who didn't become priests. I know some that didn't become priests until they were in their mid-40s, and they tend to have a very different view of the world because they have real life experiences, and I think they can do the work of their vocation so much better just by understanding the relationships between men and women and adult life. And it's a problem, but then that you compound that with the situation where the compromise, and Kyle was talking about it the other day, of Vatican II, the compromises that have been made by the church in an attempt to grow the body, but it does just the opposite. But the compromises have just been devastating. And everything from recognition of same-sex couples to what you're talking about, just the easy path to dissolution of till death do us part. And it's really sad. It's really a difficult situation. So we have to pray for the church and pray for significant reform. And I put you on my prayer list right now, so I'll be praying for you and for your wife and for your kids, and it's an awful thing, and the harm that it causes not only you and your wife but your children is well documented. It's just not a good thing. That's not to suggest that one side is right and the other side is wrong. Everybody has faults and everybody brings bad blood into every relationship. And it's it's a struggle. It's so hard to have a consistency in a marriage, while I don't agree that the church should be compromising on these moral principles that it has been within the relationship itself between a man and a woman, it's every bit a compromise every day, and it has to be. You just have to learn to be empathetic and to see what the other person is trying to communicate. And it's really difficult because we are from different planets. Men and women are so drastically different. But we'll pray for you, and it wouldn't be the first time. There have been a lot of marriages that have been on real rocky ground, including my own. And you just have to step back from it sometimes and take a couple of deep breaths and really resolve to work to make it happen. The other thing in terms of counseling I'd throw out there, even if your wife won't read it, but I would hope that she would. But there's a book called Love and Respect, and it really goes at the relationship of a man and a woman from the standpoint that we're so different, that women are looking for love and men are looking for respect, and that a lot of times men feel so disrespected, and in trying to love their wives, the wives feel unloved. And so we have unloved and unrespected, and that's what breaks up but it's a Christian book, not Catholic, but it's a Christian book, and it's kind of hokey in some parts, and it's got some stuff in it, like you say, you can find value. I can find value in anything I read too. So I didn't buy into all of it, but the basic concepts of it, of trying to get the man to realize what the wives need, while getting the woman to understand what makes a man function. I found it helpful in our relationship, so I throw that out there to you.
Thank you for the recommendation. I do believe my wife has read at least some of it, and I don't think she liked it for whatever reason. And it comes down to, I just generally speaking, in marriages, I just have this idea that people are in such denial of their own faults that they just can't take any ownership for them and strive to change. And that seems to me like the biggest reasons why marriages fail.
Yeah, and the thing is we're so cognizant of the other person's failings, and we spend so much time focusing on all the things that are wrong with them, but we don't spend that much time really in self-reflection thinking about, okay, what are the problems that I'm causing in the relationship? It's really easy to look across the aisle and see, golly, she screws this up and does this and does that and says this and is always doing that. I mean, that's the easiest thing in the world. The hardest thing is to look in the mirror and saying, like, okay, forget about that. I'm going to 100% focus on what have I done wrong and where do I need to improve? And I think that's
exactly,
that's the key to it. And if she's read some of it, then I would say you ought to read it. And I'll tell you that when Kyle's mom, and he mentioned it on the program once before, Kyle's mom and I went through a real tough thing, and I ended up going and living at a monastery with some monks for about 6 months. And that was a really life-changing experience for me. But when we were still distant, while we were still separated, we would read over the phone. She would read a chapter one night, and the next night it was my turn, and I would read a chapter, and we would read out loud to one another, and then it started the dialogue. And it's whatever you can do, whatever you can do. But I'd say keep praying and keep trying. That's all. And then at some point, don't push too hard. And, just step back and be reflective and try to make yourself the best person you can be. And then I think it's up to God to take care of the rest of it.
Yeah, I do have a lot of worry about it because she told me explicitly that she wants to pursue an annulment immediately after the divorce. And of course, every single annulment tribunal is corrupt to one degree or another.
Mm-hmm.
And they have some really fast and loose criteria for what qualifies as nullifiable. And it doesn't make any sense that the church for hundreds and thousands of years has made annulments very scarce and rare and hard to obtain. And now all of a sudden they can find just about anything, any kind of like doubts before the marriage or any kind of like family trauma from the past. Somehow they say impeded the person's ability to make a good decision. All that is nonsense. It's just like we need less than 1% of marriages being annulled, and they're annulling far too many. And I've got this one book titled "Betrayed Without a Kiss," and it's about the marriage crisis in the church. And they mention, the author mentions that one diocese was annulling as many as 1 in 4 marriages at one time. And I don't remember what period of time that was in, but that's ridiculously high.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
You got to stay in the moment though. Don't be going there right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that coulda, woulda, shoulda, might happen, all that stuff, but
statistical analysis.
Yeah. Just stay right where you are right now and really focus on everything you can do to listen and to understand, even if she's somewhat non-communicative, which sounds like she is, then that's on her. But make sure you do everything you can do. Don't worry about it's not on the priest, it's not on the church, it's not anybody else. It's 100% on what can you do to make yourself a better person, basically. Be the best person you can. And after you've done everything you can, then it's in God's hands. But until then, we're so tempted. And the thing is, we get our buttons pushed, and the person that you love has the best access to all of your buttons, and she can push them at just randomly, and with one word or one look or just one little thing, and then you get your buttons pushed, and then you end up getting pissed off, and when you get pissed off, then you end up doing and saying things that you later regret. So 100% just focus on every day, and a little prayer that one of the monks taught me at the monastery, which I remember on a daily basis now, is I surrender. And it's such a simple prayer, but it's really important. It's I surrender. Stop trying to manage the world or anybody else. Just surrender, and then use all of that energy to work on yourself and be, like I say, be the best person that you can be in every single respect. And if you're 100% focused on that, people will notice. People will notice he's changed. He's different. You can see it. You can see it in his face. You can see it in his eyes. He's really become very reflective and not analytical, but reflective. So it's a hard time, Joe. My heart goes out to you.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate all your advice and your wisdom. And I really been looking forward to talking to you, Charlie. I do want to change the subject slightly, but it's still related in a way. Kyle's mentioned before on one of his shows that, he struggled to figure out how to be a man in his 20s and maybe even his early 30s. I don't remember how long he struggled with it. And, it's something that I'm struggling with myself. I'm 36 now. I've always had that struggle. My dad was not able to teach me how to be a man because he had no idea how to be a man himself. His father was completely absent from his childhood, or almost completely. He was never in the same household as my dad his entire childhood. And my dad would talk about having to go visit his dad at his workplace in the Funderia in Monterrey, Mexico. And where there was, ironworks or steelworks, whatever. And that's the only way he could visit with his dad. And so is that something that you struggle with as well, Charlie, in your 20s and your 30s? Trying to learn how to be a man? Is it your father that was the alcoholic? And how did you overcome? Did you have other men to mentor you and show you how to be a man, Charlie?
I guess so, yeah. But I think my father died when I was 12, so he wasn't there for a lot of the, through puberty kind of thing. But the things that I know about him, he was a chain smoker, and one day he quit cold turkey and never looked back, and we never heard about it. I remember him smoking, and then I remember him not smoking, and so he didn't. He was an alcoholic long before I was born, and then he stopped drinking. I never saw him take a drink. I saw him late in life. He used to drink a raw egg and beer because I think he knew he was sick, and he thought that would help him. And it was probably the only way he could keep an egg down. But he would crack an egg and put it in a beer and drink it down. But never tipsy. Never saw him drink more than one beer. Never saw him take a drink of hard liquor. But my mother told me he went on drinking binges that would last for 48 hours. So I guess the lesson that I learned early in life is you can do anything you set your mind to do. And if you look at so much of the world right now, and as a 36-year-old and a lot of people in your generation, man, they are so quick to blame everything and everybody and everything for all their problems. It's like I grew up in this situation, or I had this, or this happened, or that, or these other people, or somebody was mean to me, or somebody did this, or somebody did that. And I think it's all bullshit. And I really do. I just think that at some point we have to wake up, look in the mirror, and say, okay, I'm in charge. There's nobody else responsible. I'm the only one responsible for me, and it's 100% on me. And if I fail, it's nobody's fault. It's mine. And if other people fail me, it's because I let them fail me. And I just have to, I'm going to be better. I'm going to do the best I can. And if you have that attitude every day, then you can turn any situation around. You can accomplish anything. You literally can accomplish anything you want to. And so struggling with being a man. Now, Kyle's a different kind of man than I am. And his brothers are all different kind of men, and some of them, I'm on their dad, so I judge them. I rightly or wrongly. Some of them I'm not real pleased with the decisions that they make, but I respect their decisions because I know it's not on me. And one of them actually blames me, for his problems, and I laugh about it. It's just I'm past that. It's not that I'm not empathetic. I feel sorry for him that he didn't learn that lesson, but I hope one day he does, that he'll grow up and look in the mirror and go, oh shit, this is on me. And my dad's dead. He's gone. I can't blame him or anybody else. But yeah, I did. And I think we gravitate, if you're searching, you gravitate toward those people who set a really good example. And I did have a lot of them. I had a couple of teachers that were really awesome teachers that were men in both high school and in college. And I had a number of coaches that I thought they were awesome. Now, whether they were that great in their personal lives or not, I don't know, but they were in coaching, in athletics, they were giants. They were heroes to me. And my dad taught me to work, and I taught every one of my boys to work. Some of them learned the lessons better than others. So that's kind of carry on from the previous call, but
everybody got a shot at it. Not everybody took advantage of it.
Yeah, you're going to be all right, Joe. You're going to be all right because you're a very intelligent person. You're very thoughtful, and you got a lot going for you. You're in a real rough patch right now, but you have to see yourself on the other side of it, coming out and just being a really great person and a really great dad. Those are, you have two responsibilities. The first one is to be the best person that you can be, and in every respect. And the second one is to be a great dad and a great example. And that's not complaining about mom. That's not about bad mouthing her or her bad decisions or anything like that. It's just 100% being the best you can.
Thank you very much for that, Charlie. One thing I struggle with also, there's a lot of Catholic literature on virtue, but not a whole lot that really explains with concrete examples or realistic examples as to how that virtue is lived out. For example, I'm not really sure how to actually carry out mercy and justice in my life. I don't know. I try my very best to be honest, but sometimes I can be brutally honest. And being brutally honest can be good or bad depending on how it's carried out. And it's that prudential angle. It's I don't know. It's hard for me to really know. It's hard for me to really know how to live out virtue in a concrete and realistic way in this world, especially in a post-Christian world where everything that society is pushing goes against divine law.
Yeah, I think it's. Yeah. I think number one, golden rule. So I treat others as I want to be treated, not as they treat me. but I treat others as I want to be treated. And number two, for all of the post-Christian secular world, all the evil, and there's real evil, it's really out there, and it's very prevalent, not to be consumed by it. Because it's so easy to get so focused on that external stuff that's happening and to get so angry about it and to try to react to it. And, and like you say, being honest and, and pointing out all the flaws and all that. But it's the plank and it's the sliver, get the plank out of your own eye. So 100% focus back on you. It's like stop with the concern about the church, the priest, the wife, the process, all the external stuff is virtually unimportant. The number one thing that you're charged with is your own personal salvation. And the only way you're going to get there is by being really brutally honest and tough on yourself. There's a story, there's a bunch of them, but there's a story that I remember that I read about a monk, and he was so devout and so virtuous, and we just talked about virtue. He was so devout and virtuous that when he was falsely accused of doing something that he knew another monk had done, he took the punishment and he never let on. He never, ever let on that it wasn't him. And I think that's the epitome of it. And that's really hard because we're all looking for justice and truth and fairness and all that stuff. But if you want to be truly virtuous, you just take it on. You just say, okay, I'm just going to take the punishment. And it's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault, but I'm not going to argue it. I'm going to take the punishment because probably I did something in the past where I didn't get caught and didn't get punished. So if you can get to that level of self-reflection, then I think you can really turn the corner on all this stuff. And like I say, people will see the change in you. And too often we all have it. We all have that desire to be, to find justice and to accuse to find all the faults in the world. But if you go on give yourself a time frame, whatever it's 7 days or 10 days or a month, and criticize no one but yourself, and just be completely self-reflective for an extended period of time, and devote every minute that you can in prayer. Your work is a prayer, your prayer is a prayer, your sleep is a prayer, your awake is a prayer, and just really offer it all up. And you can make a huge transformation in your life. It's very possible. That's where miracles come from.
Yeah, I do try to draw some inspiration from the lives of the saints, and there's not a lot of laymen that are saints that I've been married to. There's one general, French general.
Well, I think there are. I think there's a lot of laymen that are saints. They may not have been canonized, and they may not have been written about, and we don't know about them.
There's a French general by the name of Gaston Louis de Sonny, and his body lies incorrupt in France right now. He was a French Foreign Legion. He lost his leg in the Franco-Prussian War. And he was a third order Carmelite. And the way he carried himself was just so extraordinary. And just reading about his life and how he lived it, it makes you wonder how he knew to become what he became with the grace of God.
Well, I'm looking to meet up with St. Joe in the future, and I think you got the makings of doing it. You're a very thoughtful person. I can't say it often enough. Put all the energy into you, into fixing you, and it's like just every day in self-reflection. And that's where it is. And every time you're tempted to look outside of yourself and find fault in someone else, ask for forgiveness and get back to the work of just making every thought, every word, and every action as pure as you can make it. And when you do that, you'll see, wow, it's just like, that's the ultimate goal. And you're going to fail. You're going to fall down. You're going to have your bad days. You're going to, you're going to be angry, disappointed, and somebody else and everything, but break it. Try to break that cycle and to put more and more and more energy into just working on self-reflection.
Well, one thing I can say is I'm very talented at failing, but I keep going though. That's why I do have some success.
Yeah, you're a good guy. You're going to make it. Just you follow it's not that complex. It's pretty simple. Get yourself a little mirror, carry it with you if you want in your pocket.
Yep.
And every time you find yourself looking someplace else and getting upset about something outside, just look in that mirror and go like, okay, get back to work. It's a full-time job. Becoming a saint is a full-time job. And it's for all of us. And we forget and we have bad days. And, like you say, we're all experts at making, that's why the first book is called One Stupid Mistake. It's not about one. It's like everybody makes mistakes and we make them pretty much every day, but it's not the mistakes that you make. It's how you pull out of them. And hopefully you make fewer as you go on in life than the ones that you've made previously. And so you don't have to dwell on the mistakes. You just have to dwell on the improvement.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
God bless you, Joe. Good luck to you.
Hang in there, Joe.
All right.
I appreciate you, bud.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Take care. Bye.
You bet. Have a good night.
Me too.
It's hard. I mean, it's such a hard, it's a hard thing to try to be a man and also realize that you can't control all the things, Dan?
Yeah.
That was the thing that Steve Friend and I have been talking about quite a bit. There's two counteracting impulses at the same time. And one of them is, I need to take responsibility. I need to fix the things around me. I need to solve the problems that are presented to me. And the other one is, there are many problems that are outside of my grasp. And so I have to be humble enough to just surrender and know that I am not in charge. And I'm just a passenger on this train in many ways. Yep. And those are counteracting impulses. So it leads you to this question of like, well, how am I supposed to know which ones are each? And that's, that's what discernment is. That's what the prayer is. The prayer is for discernment, to be able to know the difference.
When in doubt, go to work on you. Sure. Because you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. No, we don't know the perfect. There's only been one perfect person, and he did some incredible things. Bless the people that are killing him. I mean, who can do that?
Mm.
Who can do that? Who can walk on water? Who can do those things? There's only one person, and we can't do that. But that's what we strive for. Is we strive for that level of perfection, to get closer to it at least. And the only way to do that is through self-reflection.
It's a heavy Friday night.
Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to go there.
No, I feel bad for Joe, especially for the kids. That's one of the other things too. And I do think he's not wrong about the way that you got two choices, I guess. You look at what our Catholic Church has become and you go, oh, I'm just gonna leave it, which is, I think, an instinct that some people have. I've seen it out in the audience there. There's people in the chat that are doing it right now that are talking about that, and they go, this is, I saw it and I'm out. And then there's the alternative, which is that, it did last through some pretty awful and incredibly awful things for a very, very long time.
Yep. Almost from the beginning, because,
it's a human institution.
Look at Peter. Peter's a very imperfect guy. He screwed up and, denied Christ, and right in the moment of the first test, and he failed it. And he failed a number of others along the way. And then all of his successors have all failed. They've all failed in some respect. And the most recent one, when we talk about him, Francis, failed a lot. Was he an evil, bad person? I don't think so. I think he really had a good heart. I think he really meant well. He just got all, twisted around in contemporary society. But it goes back to the same thing. It's like you can quit the church, but does that solve the problem? No, you can't quit yourself.
Right.
So just work on you. And the church is, I used to teach a class, and I told the adults that were in the class, they were men, and I said, it's like a tool chest. The church is just a tool chest, and it's got some really cool tools in it that can help you in trying to get where you want to go. And but you don't use every tool every day, but they're there when you need them. And if you think of it that way, then it's not the church's responsibility. My sister left the church because she was mad about the same thing that Joe's upset about now. She was married to a guy and he got an annulment. He got a divorce and an annulment. And she thought that the church had betrayed her because she went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic college, and was a practicing Catholic. And then she left the church because she was mad at the church. Well, it wasn't the church has a lot of flaws, but that didn't mean you have to throw your toolbox in the lake because you got on a bad job or you had some bad instruction or you didn't get paid or whatever. It's like you keep your toolbox.
Yeah,
and that's all it is. And some parishes are really good, and some priests are excellent preachers, and some are really bad. They're terrible preachers, and they just got it all wrong. But that's out there. What you just keep working on what's inside you and get better every day.
Yeah, I think being on social media is not helping me on that end.
No, it's because that's the whole nature of it. Is you somebody says something, you respond. Somebody says something, you respond.
That's right.
And then most of the time you laugh about it, which is good because you have the good perspective. Yeah. But every once in a while, somebody will push a button and they'll piss you off. And then you go like, oh man, and then you end up getting even, and you can one up them and you can even win the battle. But did you really win anything? You didn't. You really didn't. So but it's hard. It's hard when you're being in the public spotlight. It's a lot easier. Why do you think the monks went and lived in caves, and shut themselves off from the outside world? Because that was the whole process. The process was just to work on themselves, not to try to fix anybody else or to fix the culture of the society. And that's been going on for a couple thousand years too.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Tough gig you got here, son.
Yeah, all of us. Tough time in this thing. Although I'll go back to my previous statement to Chris, which is that as far as times go, it's a pretty good time to be alive still. Which every once in a while, just a little bit of gratitude goes a long way, even in spite of whatever else may be going on. Like I said, you can see a bunch of flaws, you can see a bunch of screw ups out there. You can blame anybody else you want, but I'll go stand out in the cul-de-sac in the quiet when the sun goes down and just be grateful that I got a roof over my head and my family's eating. I mean, that's
huge.
It's not nothing. It's not nothing. And I don't take it for granted, having been in the alternative where it was like, I don't even know what's going to happen next. I don't even know where I'm going to put my head down tonight.
And because you've been there and I have too. I've slept in my car, and I wrote an essay once about that. And I told people, if you want to get perspective, and anybody who's listening to us tonight, I'll throw this out here. I don't care, young, old, male, female, doesn't make any difference. You want to get some perspective? You find yourself complaining about a lot of stuff? Go out, and if you have a car, go sleep in your car. Go do it tonight. If it's cold outside or rainy or it's hot or muggy or whatever, go sleep in your car.
Yep.
And you just do it for one night, and all of a sudden, man, the next time you crawl into your bed, it's like, whoa, I went to heaven. It's awesome. But I somewhere out there on the internet, you can find the essay, and I put a picture of a guy in like India in one of those really funky little like up trucks that were vertical. There was hardly any room, and there's this guy sleeping in this truck that's obviously the cab was too small for the person that was sleeping in it, and that was the point. It's like, okay, yeah, go sleep in your car. And it just puts everything in perspective, because you're not going to sleep very much. You're going to be awake a lot. You're going to be very uncomfortable. and you're going to wake up very uncomfortable.
Yeah, be glad that it's morning and that you're done with it.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and then it's real easy when you go, okay, well, that's all I got. Those are the only options. And having, slept on a hard floor, not knowing where my next meal was going to come from, it does change the game. It's something that and honestly, if you get into that spot when you're young enough and you could figure out how to straighten your life out when you're older, then the goal is, I don't want that for me. I don't want that for the people that I'm responsible for. I don't want my kids to ever know it. And it may be in the reason why I'm in the position I'm in right now, from where it started, because, we had a hard conversation at one point, Emily and I, where it was just like, I don't know what's coming next, but we're going to work it out. This is a 0-fail mission. So, and that's the same thing for marriages, I think, too. I don't have any experience with the rocks like that. Although today I'll just share briefly that, I got in my wife's workspace and it was my fault, but she got mad at me for getting hit because she slammed a door on my arm, and it was my fault apparently. And and I didn't disagree with what she said. I just didn't like the way she said it. That's how often is that the case, where somebody said something that they're right, but we didn't like the way they said it. I heard something the other day about a guy talking about shaving. Did I play that as a palate cleanser the other day?
I'm trying to remember.
If not, I probably have it here. And sometimes it's not what you said, or even the message or the request. It's just how it gets said and whether or not we're conveying a message in a way that somebody else is able to hear, which is not the same thing. I want to see if I feel
we expect people to understand when we say something because it's perfectly clear to us.
Correct.
And that's such a false assumption. It's just it's so flawed, because you don't know what the receptor, the same person on a different day, depending on which way the wind is blowing, can hear something and get a different message. So our communication is very imperfect.
Okay, I got it. I've got it here. So let me see if I can pull it up. You ready? This is actually a pretty good little clip. And I don't know if I played this before, but if not, it's still good. Let's see if this goes.
Okay, so...
That is not it.
Okay.
That should have been it, though.
Should have been, but it wasn't.
No, here it is.
There's something about shaving. I do remember that you did, but I don't remember what
All right,
it was.
well, here's it is. One more time.
I have to shave 5 days a week. On the weekends, I don't shave. And I remember dating a girl who, she had very sensitive skin. So anytime I would kiss her, if I hadn't shaved, it was the weekend, she would be like, oh, yeah, it's like, And I remember, I would get kind of annoyed because she'd be like, oh, your beard is so scratchy. And I would be like, all right, you know what? Then I won't kiss you. How about that? Because it felt like a criticism. It didn't work out with that girl. The next person I dated, she had the same thing, but she was brilliant because it was like a Friday or a Thursday and I'd shaved, and she comes up and she goes, oh God, it's so sexy when you're fresh shaved like that. Dude, I would have shaved 3 times a day. Did the same thing. You both just wanted to express the same thing, except one of you did it in a way that made me instantly defensive, and the other one did it in a way that was like, oh, I love this about you. And then I'm like, that's easy. I can serve that up easy. I think knowing what you want is really important. And then knowing how to express that to your partner is really important. And I think it's better to express it in a positive way than in a negative way.
Man, that would solve so many conflicts in romantic relationships. That's awesome. I hadn't heard that before, but I'll never forget it. That's awesome.
Right?
Really good.
It's not about what was said. It's not about what you wanted. It's about how to get the other person to do it. Oftentimes that's, sales. Good salespeople are about messaging, right? And you've done a lot of sales. So it's not about what do I want from you? How do I get you to agree to the sale? It's like, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell a couple of good classic closes from back in the Cowboys days? I think people get a kick out of one of those.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if anybody cares about old, ancient history. But we had one situation where, sometimes you can, I always tell people don't try to baffle me with bullshit, but it does work sometimes.
Sure.
And so we had, when I was working for the Rangers, we had 2 beers. We had Miller and we had Budweiser. Budweiser was the big sponsor. Miller was a secondary sponsor. And Miller called, a guy from Miller, he's a really good guy, Paul. I'm still friends with him. He called and said, I don't think we're going to have the budget to be able to do what we did last year. And I was under a lot of pressure to increase the revenue in that category. And so I knew we could up Budweiser a little bit, but they were already paying a lot. And I was counting on getting Miller up a little bit. But he told me up front, we had a really good relationship. I don't think I can get the money. So we got a call, or I had somebody place a call to Coors, and they were in Colorado. And so the guys from Coors came down, and they had been trying to get in and bump either Miller or Budweiser out of the ballpark in Arlington with the Texas Rangers.
Sure.
And so they walked in the room, and we were in the conference room, glass conference room, overlooking the ballpark, beautiful ballpark, which they don't even use anymore. But we're standing there, and I said, "Okay, gentlemen, this is the plan for the day. Thank you so much for coming down. I'm gonna give you a tour of the ballpark, and we're gonna have a beautiful lunch, and you can go, fly back to Colorado then. If you want to have a conversation with us about sponsorship, we're talking about 7 figures." Now, at the time, Budweiser wasn't paying 7 figures, and Miller was paying about $300,000. And so I told the Coors guys, it's a 7-figure discussion. And I never forget, there was like 3 of them, and they just looked at one another, and they looked at one another back and forth and everything, and they puffed up their chests, and they said, "Yeah, we can have that conversation." And I said, "Cool." And so we did. We gave them a tour, and then we sat down and had lunch. And then we started going through, and they go, "Well, what do we get for $1 million?" I go, "You get whatever you want, and when you get to $1 million, I'll tell you." And so, what do you want? How can we work with you? And we gave him, I remember we gave him the speed gun because we hadn't had a speed gun before. So we gave him a Coors sign that had the speed gun number on it. So the pitcher threw a 88 mile an hour slider, it went up. And if they threw a 98 mile an hour fastball, that went up.
So they're sponsoring a kinetic item
an
out there.
Interactive kind of thing. That's the way we sold it. And they got an ad in the program and everything else. And,
right.
And so, and then it gets better. So then they said, I said, "Okay, well, you're pretty much there. You got your $1 million," which really it's all random because there were no hard fixed costs for any of this stuff.
Right.
And they went like, "Oh, could we get a suite?" and I had probably at that time, I don't know how many suites we had. We had 100 and some suites. I probably had about 40 of them that were unsold. And I went like, "Oh boy, that's gonna be extra." And they went, "Oh, how much extra is that?" And I go, "Well, that'll probably be like, it's probably, we're making up a number, 250,000." And they go, "Oh man, that's a lot." And I go, "I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you for 125,000, and with a food and beverage menu and stuff." And they went, "Oh, great!" And so, so they ended up spending like $1.2 million, and we blew the category away because then Anheuser-Busch, when they found out Coors was coming in, they couldn't not be there, and then Miller had a very small presence, so we had all 3 beers. So anyway, a couple of years later, I got invited to a Christmas party, and the guy from Coors, who his name was Tex, ironically enough, and he had moved to Dallas, and Tex was there. And the first thing he did, he came up and he went, "Hey, Charlie, so good to see you." He said, "God, I remember that time we beat you out of that suite." And and I went like, "Yeah, you sure did, man. You're a heck of a negotiator." So anyway, it's all the way you present things and make people feel good about it. And
everybody likes to get a deal. Everybody likes to get a win.
Yep.
Sometimes you can get what you want by giving somebody else a win. They just have to know that they and you can't swindle them, right? You can't screw them.
It's like, no, but they had the money. They wanted the relationship. They tried for years to get in. And so it was a win-win. Everyone won at the end of the day, and we gave them outstanding service. That was the other thing is, every sales organization that I was ever associated with, they really had to understand that the customer is always right. even when the customer's wrong. And I think that's a lesson in the marriage and the relationships we're talking about, is being right and losing is not a good plan. It just doesn't help.
Yeah. So, we've had these discussions with our advertising agency. And one of the things that, the guy's like, hey, client likes working with you, wants to be on the show, appreciates it, doesn't quite get their money worth out. It's not performing the way they want it to. Can we give them, a discount to get them to sign for the rest of the year? I go, well, what's the discount look like? And they go, here it is. It's like, yeah, we can do that. Because at the end of the day, the one thing I learned in sales, which is also useful in a marriage, I'm sure, but it's like, it's better to have a percentage of something than 100% of nothing.
Yep.
You can be right on your own principles and give no ground and lose all of it because somebody else didn't show up for it. Or the alternative is you make a bargain, whatever that is. You take less than what you hoped you might get. And at the end of the day, you end up with a relationship that's functional and you grow it. And it's your job to go out and make it outperform till they want to pay you more or till they want to do more or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember, maybe you told me this, but maybe somebody else did. I don't know. It's one of those things that I've been carrying around in a marriage relationship. The first person to say sorry, regardless of what happens, wins. Even if you were wrong, even if you were in the right in the first place. Yep. The first person who says sorry wins.
Yep.
Every time. Always. That's universal in my experience. Yep. Even when you feel really shitty about doing it, you feel really good right afterwards. It only takes a few minutes to be right.
It's just like it just diffuses the situation. Yeah. Take responsibility even when it's not yours. The CBS story, which is the other one, real quickly. Sorry to go on and keep people. I don't know if both of them are still watching us here tonight, but at KCBS, I used to, when I was a news and program director, when something would screw up and somebody did something wrong on the air, I would call into the desk, and I listened pretty much 24/7. And so the editors were the hotline would ring. They go, yeah. And I go, what happened? And the first thing I was getting for a couple of months was, well, it wasn't my fault. I told him not to do that. And I wrote the script one way, but he read it another way. Or I told him that interview wouldn't work or blah, 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 whatever it was. But they were always making an excuse.
Right.
So I called a staff meeting and I said, look, here's the game. We're going to play a game. And everybody, and there were about 50 people that were working in the newsroom at that time. Everybody was there. Said, here's how the game works. When I call and say, what happened? The first thing out of your mouth is it's my fault.
Right.
I did it. It's my fault. And I said, okay. And I know that it's not your fault. You know that it's not your fault. We're just playing a game, but I really want you to play the game. Then I want you to go to the person whose fault it was and tell them, hey, I just took the heat for you. I just said it was my fault, even though I know we both know it was your fault. And so I hope you'll do the same for me. And let's not do that again. Let's clean up. Let's fix the mistake, because that was the ultimate goal: is fix the mistake so it doesn't repeat itself, right? So I went along, and people were playing the game, and it was kind of fun. So we have a staff meeting. It was like 3 months later, and this guy's name is Bob Melrose, great guy, great reporter, and we're talking about the news vehicles, and we had a fleet of news cars. We had about 5 cars, and I said, well, two of them in the shop, and one of them, and so we're down to like 3 cars, and Bob raised his hand. He goes, no, boss. He says, we're down to 2. I said, well, what happened? He said, well, I was backing out on California Street out of one of those angle parking things, I don't know what you call it. And I was backing out, and a Chinese laundry truck came over the hill, and I swear it had all 4 wheels off the ground, and he smashed into the back of the car and totaled the car. And I went, oh my goodness, are you okay? He goes, yeah, I'm okay. I had my seatbelt on, airbag deployed, and but the car it was totaled. And I said, oh man, I'm sorry. He goes, but you'd have been so proud of me, boss, because first thing I did is I got out of the car and I went up to the driver of the Chinese laundry truck and I said, it's my fault. And obviously the newsroom went wild and everybody laughed. And I don't know if he really did it or not, or if he was just pulling my chain, but
right.
But it's a good lesson. Yeah, take responsibility even when you don't think it's deserved. And then fix the problem. because that's all we're ever after is we just want to get it fixed. And, you know, the girl wanted to fix the problem of having sensitive skin. And so she did it in a way that inspired her boyfriend to shave on weekends, even though he didn't feel like it. What a great lesson.
And be happy about it.
And be happy about it. Yeah, he's happy.
My friend referenced earlier, who's got the truck and we've known each other. I remember seeing something in college. It probably must have been a freshman anthropology class. And I remember him coming up and he said, "What binds the society together? Any society?" And I go, "I don't know." This is like one of those like freshman anthropology lessons. I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Reciprocity." And I said, "Oh, okay. I don't know what to do with that information." But as you go on and you think about it, the ability to have someone do something for you, he said, it is far better and it is far more preferable in all Western society to offer someone to do a favor for them than to accept a favor, because nobody wants to be put in debt. And he said, if you want to ingratiate yourself to people, and this is something that's always true, ask somebody for a favor, which is counterintuitive to the way we operate, because nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants to be in the situation where you owe somebody else, but putting yourself in other people's debt, and in the same way, creating a debt that they didn't expect to have by, it's my fault. Somebody calls in, it's like, I'm taking the heat. You've now created that debt, whether they like it or not. And the hope is that they'll go do it. You're building teamwork. You're building society. You're building a culture of people there in that team, which is, you know, it works on every team. Every team has done it. Every team is supposed to own the mistake. And they teach you that in the military day one, when they make you pay for everybody else's screw ups. And the worst screw up is when you screw up and everybody else pays for your screw up and you have to watch them pay.
You bet.
Because nobody wants to be that guy. Nobody ever wants to be the guy that caused the screw up that everyone else pays for, and you have to stand and watch them do the push-ups for you. Something like that. That's a terrible way to live as a man. And, you know, it generally is self-correcting, or that guy can't make it on the team any longer because he's a piece of shit. If he doesn't care about putting everybody else into it, then it's all over. I think we're going to wrap it up for the night. What do you think about that?
Thank you.
Folks, thanks for joining our program. We appreciate that. We got into some topics that are fun. I always appreciate hearing from all of you. We went a little longer on some of the calls. That's what we do sometimes here, and we do it for you. So anyway, this is your show. It is going to be whatever you turn it into. And tonight we did some marriage advice. We did some stories about the very cold north, which I don't live in, but I aspire to one day living in colder climate. I'll tell you again, if you want to join the program, you go over to KyleSerafin.com. That's the easiest way to go and join the locals group, which is there. And then we're also starting to see people pop in on YouTube as suspendable members. So we appreciate that for you guys as well. I have posted those. If you're also on X, you guys can see that we punch out the phone number. It's a new phone number every month for those who are in our paid subscriber group. In other words, you guys sponsor this program. Lastly, if you guys want to send me weird stuff, I don't know what I saw someone say, I don't know what kind of farmer Kyle wants to be. I'm not sure I want to be any kind of farmer right now, not in a rental house, but the postal box is 9070 West 8 Highway 29, Suite 110, Box 509. Let me just say thank you to while we're doing it here. I had two people send me something, Miss Brown in Jefferson, Texas, you know who you are, and the King James Bible Church in Utah. I appreciate your mail and the cards and the note and the sentiment and the financial thing. I don't know what we'll do, but all of this has basically just empowered me to kind of look around and see who is around me that needs my help. And I'm the vessel for which you guys are carrying that out. So thank all of you. God bless you. I look forward to seeing you guys for this Sunday sit down. For those of you on the locals, it'll be on Saturday. And then also it'll stream live at 1 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, on X, on YouTube, etc. Hope you guys have a great night. Go get some rest. Here's our little outro.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Serafin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Serafin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Serafin.